Halloween tutorial of this year. I don't know how many I'll be doing. I'm just really not feeling very inspired this year, but this popped into my head. I didn't check to see if anyone else has done it. I'm sure it's not the most original idea in the world. I've done carved makeups before and I love doing clown makeup, so I figured I'd try a carved clown makeup today. It's actually relatively easy. It took me a while because I was explaining and there was a few steps, but it isn't the most kind of complicated of things to do. The most special effectsy thing you're going to be using, sorry I'm looking for it, is Pritt Stick if you decide to cover the hairs in the middle of your brows like I did, but that's only because my eyebrows are massive. You could probably get away without having to do that. And then I did use a little bit of fake blood as well, which you could skip if you want. It does obviously look a little bit more realistic with blood. But yeah, sorry if you're scared of clowns. Here you go. Okay, so this won't be a step for everyone. This is just what I need to do with much thicker eyebrows so that I can cover them with the paint, because my eyebrows are too dark and too thick. If you have thinner or fairer eyebrows, you could probably skip this. This is just for anyone like myself who has more generous brows or monstrous brows. So what I began with is to get a low tack tape. So don't use sellotape or anything that's really sticky that might pull out your eyebrows. This is Scotch tape. It really doesn't have much adhesion to skin anyhow or hair, because I even had to make sure to hold it down so it wouldn't pop up with the oils in my skin. That's perfect. So I just popped that either side of the little section in my eyebrow, and then I start off with Pritt Stick. Now, depending on where you live, you might not be able to get Pritt Stick. This is a water soluble kids glue. It's really important that you use something water soluble so that it won't pull out your hairs, and literally it just comes off with water. That's why I'm able to use, which you'll see in a sec, baby wipes to clean up around it, because it has moisture on it or water on it. So this is safe, solvent free. Whatever you use, it absolutely has to be water soluble, or like say washable or whatever on the front. And I literally just start brushing that up against the hairs. So this is the best way to flatten them. My first one came out a lot better than the second one. The second one is the one I did on camera. I just didn't put on enough and flatten them down. Put it on, flatten it down as much as you can. I just used the actual glue, and then I used my baby wipe to take away any excess from underneath and up top, and then I just let that dry. Once that was dried, I put on a second layer, and again flatten that down as much as you can and clean around with your baby wipes. And again, let it dry a little bit. It doesn't have to dry 100% now, because what I'm doing next is getting some light or translucent powder, and I'm just going to put that over the top to kind of take away any tackiness. Then I go in with a color correcting concealer. This is salmon colored, so basically what this does is it takes down the darkness of my eyebrows more or less, and it'll help to counteract that real dark color. Because if I was to go in just with concealer, there'd probably be a little bit of shadows showing through. So I popped this on and set it with my powder. Again, I try to make sure that it's only on the darkness, otherwise it will look more kind of peachy orange on the skin that doesn't need to be corrected. I went in with a second layer once I had set that with some powder. This is just to make sure I've knocked out as much of that dark colour as possible. Set it with powder, and then just to bring it a little bit more back in tone with my own face, this is the concealer that I would use on my own skin or my own face that matches like my foundations and stuff. I just put that over and then again set with powder, and then once I was happy that that was all covered and set, I carefully pulled up the Scotch tape. Pull it up in an upward motion so you're not going to disturb the glue by pulling it down and maybe like pulling some of the hairs down. And then just to finish off, because it was fairly straight up, I just go in with my baby wipes, and again, because it's water soluble, if there's any glue I want to get rid of I can, and just taper it off ever so slightly. It doesn't matter so much because I will be painting over it, but that is how I covered those little section in my eyebrows. Next, I'm going to go in with a very fair or pale foundation. I don't want it to be white, but I wanted it to be very fair again. I'm actually going to mix in my, if I can find it, my Lightening drops by The Body Shop, just to make it super pale. And I'm just going to paint that on as normal. Or, you know, apply it as normal. I'm going to bring a little bit of the foundation over my lid, just as a base more or less for the eyeshadows, and it'll help to cover the kind of concealer and that comes down from the eyebrow covering. You could apply concealer if you want. I don't feel the need to cover any spots considering I'm going to be carving up my face. I'm just going to set the base with powder. I just realised that this eyebrow thing looks very like the Scarface or whatever his name is from The Lion King. You could definitely use it for that as well. I want to use like slightly purpley eyeshadows without them being purple. This is the Balm Matte Nude. Doesn't matter what you use. I just like these are quite cool coloured without being full on purple. Use whatever colours you feel like you want to use or that you have. I'm just going to start applying these around the eyes. It's just to make them look a little bit sore and just very, very sunken. And I'm going to do the same up the top, concentrating there on the inner corner. This is Matte Hung is the name of this eyeshadow. Again, it doesn't matter, just any slightly, ever so slightly like purpley, mauvey, grey colour. Although feel free to go much more purple if you feel like it as well. I'm not going to worry about the lid too much because I'll be bringing the face paint down onto that. So it's just more that inner corner area. And I'm also going to contour a tiny bit with this slightly more grey colour. No need to do this at all if you don't feel like it. This is just an extra. I'm going to start off with some water-based paint. So when it comes to face painting and all that, always remember you can layer grease and oil paints on top of watercolours, but you can't put watercolours on top of grease and water paints. So if you're going to be layering, always start off with your watercolour. This is a KRYOLAN colour, so it's their Aqua, Aqua something or other, hold on. It's their Aqua colour, that should have been obvious. So I'm just wetting it with plain water. You can use spray or whatever you have. And I'm going to start to brush that where I want the carved to be, or the carved like parts to be. So this is just a plain red. I'm using a flat brush because I can be a little bit more precise with the shape. Any kind of relatively small brush will do. And don't worry if there's gaps. I will be going over with a little bit of a grease paint in a minute and probably a little bit of blood as well. Don't be worried if you go off a little bit because we will be going around the edges with other paints and stuff in a while. And I'm actually just going to leave the centre of my lips for lipstick. It's going to be a little bit more comfortable to wear. Then next, using a pretty small brush, like a very small brush, I'm going to go in with black. And it can be watery enough. I just want to darken inside just the edges, if that makes sense, of the red to make it seem quite deep. And again, don't worry, we will be layering over this again a little bit. And I'm not being too careful yet, that's why I'm so far away from the mirror. Once I start playing with the cream makeups, I'll get a little bit more precise. I'm just going to pop on the lipstick now to the lips. So I'm going to use some grease paints now, or paint sticks, whatever you want to call them. These are by MAC. I'm using just the white, which I'll be using in a minute. Actually, I don't need that yet. But I have black and then I have basic red. So they're the two that I'm going to be working with now, just to layer over the Aqua colours. So you probably are better off making sure that these are dry before you go in with these, so that the Aqua colours are dry before you go in with the paint sticks, and then just start popping them in place. So I'm going to start off with a fairly small brush so I can be pretty accurate, and just run it along the paint stick. Will start getting a little bit more precise with the shape. So even though I'm going over this, you'll still have some of the darkness of the black underneath popping through, so it gives a little bit more dimension. Then using the black paint stick, I'm going to use a very, very fine brush, fine tipped brush, and apply a little bit of black, so in the centre of my lips and coming out in the centre of that wound to make it seem a little bit more set back. Try not kind of over blend it either. And you can skip parts. And I'm also going to apply a very thin kind of outline, very thin though. And again, you can skip it in parts. It's just to make it seem a little bit more deep or set back from the skin in parts. And then using an ultra fine brush again, use your white paint stick and go around very, very finely around the outside of some parts of the wound. So basically dark colours push back, light colours bring forward, so it'll make it seem like the skin is coming out a little bit, make it look a little bit more realistic. And just try and make sure that it doesn't get mixed in with the red. Make a mistake or a smudge like I did there, leave it, because I'm going to be adding a little bit of blood. That's why I left a lot of gaps down here, and we can just cover it up with blood. You don't use too much blood, but just enough to add to the effect. And I'll be more or less having a little bit of blood coming down all the bottom of it as well, so I'll leave under the lips alone. So next I'm going to put some red lip liner. Again, be careful. Sometimes it could irritate the eye, so do so at your own risk, but it's still safer than using paint in the waterline. And if you're sensitive, skip this altogether, just to be careful. Okay, so before I add the blood, this is where if you want to maybe customize it for a girly look, go ahead. So I might just, I'm not going to get mad girly with it or anything, but I'm just going to apply a little bit of, if I can find it, liquid eyeliner, just a little bit to the outer half of my top lid. And then obviously if you're someone who just doesn't want to wear makeup and want it to just be more like a natural look, don't bother putting on eye makeup. And then of course, this is optional, I'm going to put on a little bit of mascara as well. maybe just to the top lashes. Okay, so I promise there's only 2 more steps left. I'm going to go back into that palette that I was using, use a little bit of this yellowish colour and a little bit of that like beigey, pinky, browny colour. Mix the two together, and I'm going to very, very lightly apply it around the edge. Of those, just to make it look a little bit irritated. So of course you could feel free to leave it at this. It looks fairly carved, but if you have a little bit of blood, feel free to stick some on as well. I'm going to use the like really gloppy stuff. Oh, there's some blood in there that keeps leaking. I have a big bag of blood and it leaks and it goes everywhere once it leaks. But anyhow, I'm going to use the blood paste. This is by Graphtopian. This is a really jelly, massive blob just came out. It's a really jelly blood, so it's not going to run all over your face. Like, it's fairly solid, except for that big blob that just fell on my nightgown, which needs a wash anyhow. And yes, I am wearing my nightgown. I'm dressed underneath, but it's flipping cold here. Okay, so try not to spill anymore. I'm going to go in with a small brush. I'm just going to clean off one of those brushes that I was using a while ago. These are brushes that I use specifically for Halloween looks. They're kind of crappy brushes that I've stopped using for makeup, but are still grand for this kind of work. And just pick it up. So you can see there, it's quite gloppy, gloopy. Be careful, don't use too much around your eyes, obviously, because you don't want it to go in your eyes, but you can pack it on any of the bigger areas. And don't like completely ruin all the shading and stuff you've done by putting on too much, but it's nice to have a bit. And you can do a few smudges around the face if you want. So don't get it in your mouth, just put it around the outside of the lips just to be safe. There is edible blood you can get, it just tastes horrible. So I wouldn't advise it. And there you have it. If you wanted it to be more of a glamour shot, you could go ahead and do your brows or whatever. I'm just going to leave them as is. But this is the finished carved clown look. So if you've got any questions, leave them below for me, and I'll see you all in my next video. So long, guys.